It's not only Halloween season, but Art the Clown is back. So I figured it'd be a perfect time to rank every Terrifier movie. So let's do it. All right, so as some of you know, the whole Terrifier Art the Clown thing really all started with the short films The Ninth Circle from 2008 and Terrifier from 2011, which were short films all part of this anthology movie called All Hallows Eve from 2013. But to me, really everything started with the first feature-length Terrifier from 2016. So this ranking, this video is not going to be about like this Art the Clown universe. We're not going to rank everything that involves Art the Clown. It's going to really focus on the 3 feature-length Terrifier movies. And there's a lot to talk about because the budgets for these movies, the feel of these movies are very different in some ways. I mean, we're going all the way from like a $30,000 budget to a $2 million, very much like a Hollywood type of a production with still, you know, definitely some indie feel to it, which we'll talk all about. So yeah, let's get into the ranking. So starting us off at number 3 is going to be Terrifier from 2016. So yeah, like I mentioned, the original Terrifier was made for about $30,000. Damien Leone was having a hard time even getting funding, even getting the $30,000 to make this movie. And Damien Leone, I think, just deserves so much credit for how he originated this story and the idea of how he was going to build this. How is he going to basically convince fans to come and see his movie? Which I think was just very, very smart. I mean, it's a $30,000 movie. How is he going to convince people to see this movie instead of movies that are made for $20 million, have all these cool gadgets and all these things going on, and you got to really get people talking. Of course, like there has to be something that makes people say, holy shit, that movie definitely stands out. And a part of that is, of course, not really dealing with a lot of the studios, even though that wasn't really, you know, something that was going on with the original Terrifier. But yeah, I mean, I look at this movie as really a showcase of 2 things. There's not really much else besides that, especially in the way of like story and character building and acting and all that kind of thing. There's not really much there, but yeah, it's really a showcase of 2 things, which to me is Art the Clown, who is, you know, even in this low of a budget movie, you're starting to see glimpses of Art like potentially being something great in the genre. So first of all, like I said, Art the Clown, a showcase of that. And then also a showcase of the amazing kills we are going to see later on in this franchise, especially. But yeah, Damien Leone's practical effects, gore, and just the work put behind the creativity and the thought process with the gore. And like I mentioned a second ago, how are they going to get people to go and see a $30,000 movie instead of going to the theater to see these bigger productions? Well, the hacksaw scene will probably do that. And it's one of those things that without a doubt, if you forget basically anything from this movie, and there's some stuff that are definitely forgettable about this movie, that hacksaw scene is probably going to stick with you. It is one of those holy shit horror moments, without a doubt, something that just would not have been pulled off if there was a studio behind this, you know, a recognizable big Hollywood studio. That would have never happened. The only way to do this is really to go independent and, you know, kind of just fly under the radar and do your own thing. And that scene, the hacksaw scene, definitely shocked a lot of people and drew a lot of fans to just the brutality of Art and what Art was going to be, right? Speaking of Art the Clown, this was our introduction to David Howard Thornton as Art the Clown. Of course, David has played Art now in 2 and 3 as well. But yeah, you're starting to see those early glimpses of like how great Art can be, how kind of unique Art can be. He doesn't talk. He's like a mime kind of mixed with a clown. Clowns are always pretty damn creepy, especially for me, ever since Pennywise came on the scene for me and basically made me, you know, have nightmares for 10 years of my life as a kid. But yeah, I don't think it can be overstated like what David has done with the character. Art has kind of that unique aspect to him. He's not necessarily wearing a mask. Yeah, he's got prosthetics. Yes, he's got makeup on and things like that, but he can still like emote. He can still kind of show personality, which of course was something that Freddy Krueger did in comparison, especially characters like Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, characters that are behind a mask, characters that can kind of just be played by all different kinds of stuntmen. You know, I don't think, of course, you know, Art the Clown is on the level of like a Freddy per se, but, you know, David does do a lot of things here that, especially in this first movie, that make Art unique. And we'll talk more about that, of course, as the movies go along. But Yeah, I mean, with the first Terrifier, I mean, when I think back on it, you could argue that this is the scariest movie in the franchise. I don't know. It just has this like low budget, eerie type of feel. You know, a lot of the movies taking place at like this abandoned apartment building kind of a thing. We got the weird lady with the dolls and stuff, but there's some creepy stuff in the first Terrifier. And there's still a lot of ambiguity with what Art really is. Is this some guy who could like show up to any of us at any time? He's creeping around in the shadows, you know, on Halloween night. And yeah, I mean, it is pretty creepy. Like I said, could be considered the scariest movie in the franchise. But really, like, yes, the first Terrifier movie, not a great movie. I would not consider it a very good movie. It's not a movie that I would go back and, you know, make an effort to rewatch in any sort of a way. Not a movie that I really enjoy. The practical effects from Damien Leone are incredible, like I already said. And you're starting to see some potential from Art the Clown there, without a doubt. But yes, not a very good movie. The acting's not very good. But, I mean, we will talk about this more with Terrifier 2 and especially Terrifier 3. But just their ability and Damien Leone's ability to stretch a $30,000-ish budget into like some of the stuff we see in the original Terrifier, I'm still like, damn, pretty impressive. And what they do in Terrifier 2, we'll talk about that even more. So there you go. Coming in the third spot, last place, the original Terrifier. All right, and up next at number 2 is going to be Terrifier 2 from 2022. That's a lot of twos, but Terrifier 2, like, what a crazy experience. I mean, we're going to talk about what Terrifier 2 and Terrifier 3, of course, too, did for filmmaking, just in general, indie filmmaking, and so many other things. But yeah, we've seen movies go viral in a sense in the past. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is the Blair Witch Project, which just went mega viral, made like $250 million. So this movie, of course, is not on that scale. It's a totally different type of movie that can, you know, this is a different movie that's kind of still reserved for like hardcore slasher fans, whereas a movie like Blair Witch can kind of weave more into the general pop culture of society. But anyways, this is not a Blair Witch Project review. So the similarities, though, with that type of viral aspect, you know, of course, like when Terrifier 2 was initially starting to be released, yeah, a lot of people had never even heard of Art the Clown or Terrifier, but you started to hear these things about like, holy shit, people are watching this movie and passing out. Ambulances are coming to theaters. Like, what's going on here? It almost started to be like a daring friends, teenagers, whatever have you, to go and see this movie. Then the media started to kind of pick up on that, and we started to hear some more stories about Terrifier 2. Stephen King tweeted about Terrifier 2. Howard Stern kind of talked about Terrifier 2 a little bit on his show. But things just started to snowball a little bit. Like this indie film made for roughly $350,000, crowdfunded as well. Like things just started to go kind of crazy. You know, it was only supposed to be in theaters for a short release, and then it just kept going and kept going and kept going, and that was wild. But, you know, of course, you have to give Terrifier 2 credit because Terrifier 2 is very important to the story with Art the Clown, everything going on, of course, that we see in Terrifier 3 as well. Like, we get introduced to the Shaw family in Terrifier 2. And, yeah, I mean, Damien Leone and the rest of the team do, you know, put a little bit more effort to building a character backstory here. It's not just a showcase of kills and craziness. Yeah, of course, we get some of that in this movie, without a doubt, which we'll talk about. But, you know, we're starting to meet, like, these characters we're going to follow in this story that's going to unveil what's going on with Art the Clown. You know, where does he come from? What, you know, what's the story behind what the hell is going on here? Why is he targeting these people? But, you know, we meet Sienna, Jonathan, and then, of course, their mom, you know, who gets killed in a brutal way later on in the movie. But still, you know, when I first watched Terrifier 2, you know, the first couple times I watched it, I was a little harsher on the acting in the movie. It's not great by any means. It's very much mediocre across the board. But there's something about Sienna and Jonathan in particular that I'm drawn to when I watch the movie. They have charisma, especially Sienna as an actor. You know, she's obviously more of the focal point in this franchise, you know, especially in the first and the second and the third movie. But she has this charisma, even though the acting sometimes is a little bit questionable. there's something there that draws me in and makes me want to figure out or just find out what's going to happen with her story. Also, this is another one of the movies in the franchise where Damien Leone has to wear a lot of hats. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of drawbacks with this. He's editing the movie. He's doing a lot of the practical effects. He's doing the writing. He's directing the movie. He's doing the sound design. And speaking of the sound design, that is something that always throws me off. When I go back and watch Terrifier 2, is some of the scenes, the sound is too loud during the dialogue scenes. Some of the music choices are a little bit off, in my opinion. And it just doesn't really feel that good and kind of, I don't want to say necessarily ruins the tension in some of the scenes, but just makes the tone of it feel a little bit weird, but still, it's not something that's terrible. It just kind of throws things off a little bit. And, all right, do we want to talk about the bedroom kill in Terrifier 2? What do you think? All right, let's just go ahead and do it. So I'm a guy who grew up loving horror kills. I would go back with the VHS tape, rewind them over and over again to kind of see how they pulled them off, laugh my ass off with the great ones, say holy shit to some of them too, but yeah, just go back and rewatch them all the time, watch them on YouTube, and just really enjoy kills in horror movies. I mean, hell, my channel's name is Mad Blood. I have always been a fan of kills in the horror movies, especially the ones that are creative and kind of, make you say or feel something, right? However, the bedroom kill in Terrifier 2, it's not really my thing, but I want to preface what I'm going to say with two things. The practical effects from the team, Damien Leone and the rest of the folks behind the kills and this particular scene are incredible. And also, there is not a damn thing in this movie or any of these three movies that offend me. Hell, there's not a lot of things in life that really do offend me. So my point is, this bedroom kill is not something that offends me. It's not something that makes me want to walk out of the theater or have this smear campaign about, let's picket outside of Damien Leone's house, to try to convince them to stop making Terrifier movies because it's so offensive. No, it's nothing like that. I just think from a creative perspective, in my opinion, what I prefer is I prefer kills that are a little bit quicker, very creative, and make you say, holy shit, you want to kind of go back and rewind them. This kill, not so much, and I get it. They need to have something here to make a $300,000 movie really stand out. I mean, how would the marketing have gone if this didn't exist? This movie would not have been nearly as successful without this kill. But this torture, mutilation shit, I look at it different than a movie like Hostel or a movie like Saw in some ways. But the kill in this movie, this particular bedroom scene, it's just not really my thing. Does it ruin the movie for me? No, I wouldn't say that, but I do think, in my opinion, it overstays its welcome. I get it. I get we're supposed to show Art's true brutality here, but in my opinion, I would have liked it if Art just kind of sliced her, ripped her arm off, and then we just cut to Sienna at the party. That would have been one of those kills, kind of draw it out a little bit, but would have been one of those kills where I would have said, holy shit, I need to see that again. Would have kind of left something between the ears, made me think about it, and just kind of used my imagination for the rest. But like I said, I get it. We're trying to paint Art the Clown as this maniac, the most brutal horror villain we could possibly imagine. So, like I said, I get the kill, but still, it's just not really my thing. So yeah, the moral of the story is Terrifier 2 is a pretty damn bloody movie, and I respect that, and I respect the practical effects, like I said, especially on a $300,000 budget. The effects that they do in that entire bedroom scene are very impressive. But to fast forward towards the end of the movie, yeah, I mean, we're at a carnival here, and I enjoy that. I think a carnival is a cool, creepy setting, haunted housey kind of setting in the genre. I like that aspect of it, but a gripe that I do have with the end of Terrifier 2 is we don't really get enough answers to me. We just get more questions. We're getting some information about, oh, Sienna and Jonathan's dad. He's writing these things in his sketchbook. What's the story behind that? We're just getting more and more and more questions with no answers in Terrifier 2. I wished 2 movies in, we would have gotten a little bit more as far as answers go. Not a lot, but a little bit. But yeah, at the end of the movie, there's some more gore, there's some more creepiness, but it does kind of fall off the rails a little bit for me here and there. But still, in the end, I mean, there is no doubt that the team behind Terrifier 2 worked so hard on this project and was able to pull so much out of such a little budget. And like I've said before, I mean, you can just see the passion behind this project. I know Damien Leone loves the genre, And you can see that on screen. So I love supporting projects like that, where it doesn't feel like this just a quick money grab or anything like that. I love just the hard work, the passion, the sleepless nights that went into making Terrifier 2, and I really respect that. Do I love Terrifier 2? No, I wouldn't say that. There are a lot of things that I do enjoy about it, but I do, like I said, respect it, and I love what Terrifier 2 has done for not only filmmaking, but the genre really just in general. So yeah, there you go. Terrifier 2, kind of a movie that I just consider okay to me. But yeah, Terrifier 2 coming in second place. So yes, of course, coming in at number 1 is going to be the most recent Terrifier movie, Terrifier 3. And like I mentioned earlier, was made for about $2 million. And if you think about it, is about 10 times the budget from the second Terrifier movie. And this movie really does just feel bigger in just about every single way. I mean, I think the casting seems way better in this movie. The movie is shot so much better. The sound design is light years better than Terrifier 2 and Terrifier 1, of course, in my opinion. And yeah, I mean, this is art set in this Christmas setting, a new Christmas horror movie, which first of all, I think was a brilliant idea because I don't think we have nearly enough classic, just great slasher Christmas movies. Yeah, there's a lot that come to mind, and yeah, there's some really good ones, but this is a niche and a subgenre, in my opinion, that has room to grow. And just this idea of setting art in this Christmas setting, using the Christmas tropes, I think was great. And I really enjoyed that aspect of it. We get some great Christmas vibes. So it is without a doubt a definite movie you could put on at Christmas time. There are some moments in this movie that's kind of funny to me. It almost reminds me a little bit of like In a Violent Nature in Terrifier 3. Like we're following Art a little bit here and there of kind of, you know, for a moment there, what he does behind the scenes a little bit. Like we're back at his little lair and he's kind of chilling in between like all of his crazy shit, which is kind of funny to me. But immediately the opening to Terrifier 3, I remember sitting there like, oh, this is the best shot sequence up to this point in the entire franchise, without a doubt. They're taking their time to build tension in this opening scene. And my God, the kills in the opening, they are crazy, without a doubt. There's going to be some things that people don't like in the opening, especially as far as the kills go, but these kills are so crunchy, so juicy, and very memorable. Some great practical effects once again, but the movie kicks off in a holy shit kind of a way. And just to talk a little bit more about the kills in this movie, to me, this is pretty much exactly where I wanted them to go with the kills in this movie, but still at the same time keeping that Terrifier, Art the Clown, brutality, their own unique take on kills in the genre. Like, this isn't like the second movie. Yes, the kills in this movie are very much supposed to like shock and awe the audience, but it doesn't feel as cheap as the kill, especially the bedroom kill in the second movie. These don't really feel like this just drawn out torture, mutilation. Like, what's really the point here? What are we even doing here? Like, these kills are very creative in this movie. You can clearly see Damien Leone and the rest of the team. There was a pretty big team, I think, behind the kills in this movie, but you can clearly see they went back and looked at other iconic great kills in the genre, took some inspiration from those kills, put their own unique twist on them, and made them very memorable and incredible. I mean, we've all heard about maybe there was going to be a chainsaw scene in this movie, and that scene is pretty damn crazy, memorable, and awesome. Also funny at times, which is great. You got to have that from Art. But I mean, there's great kills at the end of this movie. They're brutal. There's great kills in the middle of this movie. I mean, it is just great kill after great kill. Unlike the first and the second movie that really just have, you know, one or two like memorable holy shit kill moments, this movie is littered with them. And yeah, a big part of Terrifier 3 for me and a lot of other people was how are they going to build upon Sienna, Jonathan, their dad's backstory? What's the story behind Art the Clown? What's really going on here? And a gripe that I do have is they are building upon that, but it feels like some of the scenes with Art are kind of just thrown in to keep you from not getting too bored, because the scenes where they're kind of building that backstory with, you know, she's staying with her aunt, we're meeting some other, you know, family members and stuff like that is, it kind of drags a little bit and does get a little bit boring for me. But you do get those Art scenes, you know, but like I said, they're great scenes, but still also just kind of feel a little bit thrown in to an extent. But they do a pretty solid job building that story in Terrifier 3, not giving us too much where it's like, oh, where are we going to go with the fourth movie? You kind of exhausted everything. No, in Terrifier 3, I wouldn't say they gave us too much or too little. They kind of found like a pretty good happy medium of information to give to us. Maybe I would have wanted a little bit more, but overall, I would say the amount of information about what is going on with art and everything else, was pretty good. So yeah, we do get introduced to a lot of new characters that are going to be added to the Terrifier franchise in this movie. And like I mentioned earlier, I think the casting was pretty solid overall. There's nobody in this movie necessarily that stands out to me as particularly bad or distracting in the movie. So props to them. I think they did a good job of the new people that were added. Also, we get some horror icon familiar faces that you'll recognize trickled into the movie here and there, but it doesn't feel really forced, like forced fan service to me. It felt like it was done organically and it was done well. And I like that. It's almost similar to like what they did with the original Saw, getting actors who are well known, but are also at that kind of sweet spot in their career where they could find themselves in a movie like this. They're not asking for too much money. They're still a recognizable person with a lot of talent, which a movie like this could still afford. Another thing I thought was done very well in Terrifier 3 was they embedded some new cultural stuff. We get some stuff here about like true crime podcasting. And I know we've seen that before recently in the genre, but still, it kind of creates like this a bit of a time capsule with Terrifier 3. So when we go back and watch this movie, maybe, 20 years from now or something like that, we'll look back and it'll just kind of be like a little bit of a time capsule. You'll say like, oh, remember when that shit was relevant? Yeah, I do too. And kind of similar to maybe like a Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, we explore like this whole trauma behind everything that happened in the previous movie. With Sienna, obviously, she was already going through some stuff because her family had been going through some stuff, but that's kind of just been like exacerbated. So we're following her trauma, which I think was done well. I think Damien Leone wrote that well, and that was pulled off well from Sienna. Speaking of Sienna in this movie, I think both Sienna and Jonathan, Lauren Lavera, and Jonathan's character are much better in this movie. They have clearly been working on their, acting chops in between movies. And hats off to them for their hard work and everything. I think their acting overall in this movie is very good. There were some moments in Terrifier 2 where it was kind of a little bit distracting from most of the characters in the movie, but in this movie, they did great. Just nothing but props to them. I think they did a very good job. Now, I will say, in my opinion, there's some moments at the end of the movie that don't exactly make sense to me. And on the surface, they might kind of seem like a nitpick, but really with how the whole story plays out at the end, it's pretty distracting because it's obviously a flaw, in my opinion, with the story, with just the script and how everything goes down. Didn't love that. It kind of falls off the rails a little bit at the end. Yes, similar to Terrifier 2, this movie is long for a slasher. Yes, they could have probably cut down 10 or 15 minutes. That's a bit of a nitpick. If you love Terrifier, you just want more. You would give a shit if it's 3 hours or whatever. But to me, I think, having the movie, this type of a slasher, over 2 hours is a little bit long to me. Sienna also makes some kind of stupid decisions towards the end of the movie, which I don't really love. I also don't really love, well, it kind of fits at the same time, but also feels a little bit weird having art kind of seem like a side character at the end of the movie in a way. And the only reason I mention why that kind of feels a little bit weird is that's okay as a storyline, but if you've made art like basically this main character in the movie for these first 2 movies, and even the first half of the third movie, and then at the second half of the third movie, he kind of seems like a side character in the story, that felt a little bit weird to me. But yeah, like I already kind of mentioned, the Christmas vibes are great in this movie. There's moments, you feel kind of cold, you feel Christmassy, great set decorations. We get that moment at the mall, which is kind of crazy. There's snow outside, all that kind of stuff is going on. You know what I mean? You're going to want to watch this movie with some hot cocoa, some eggnog, during the holiday seasons. And like I already said, it's great to have another Christmas slasher that is done very well, in my opinion. I just think setting art in this type of a setting is a brilliant idea. We didn't get that from Jason Voorhees so far, unfortunately, setting Jason in like a snow setting. So getting art in this type of setting, they kind of, got to it before the Friday the 13th franchise or another franchise like that could. So I think that was smart. So if you're a fan of the Terrifier franchise and you haven't seen Terrifier 3 yet, I think you're going to be pretty fucking happy about the way and the direction this movie goes with just everything. To me, like I already mentioned, I respect the Terrifier franchise. I love what it's done for the genre. I'm not like a diehard Terrifier fan necessarily. You know, there's some goods and bads with the movie, but the third movie is by far, in my opinion, the best movie without a doubt. However, I will say, if you prefer the more low-budget type of feel, indie, guerrilla filmmaking kind of feel with the first movie and the second movie, you might like this one a little bit less because it definitely feels, I mean, do I say more polished for a Terrifier movie? I mean, it pretty much is. It feels a little bit more Hollywood, but in my opinion, I do think Terrifier 3 is a very good blend of like a bigger studio feeling type of movie mixed well with like that type of indie, no shits given type of style. We get the crazy gore with great practical effects, but you also get like a pretty good script. You also get like, you know, good cinematography, good lighting, just a bigger crew to kind of pull everything off, better sound design, which I think is awesome and great for the Terrifier franchise. And really, in the end, Terrifier 3's got some great Christmas vibes. The best kills in the franchise, in my opinion, without question. Inventive, creative, brutal, and just overall, Terrifier 3, I was pleasantly surprised, was a lot of fun. I had a really good time with it, and I have a feeling that Terrifier 3 is going to be pretty damn high on my final ranking for the 2024 horror movies of the year. So yeah, Terrifier 3, and that's my entire ranking thus far of the 3 Terrifier feature films in the franchise. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know how you rank these movies down below in the comments section. Also, make sure you subscribe because I will have a full in-depth review on Terrifier 3 when it drops on VOD. That way I can just get right into the nitty and gritty in the movie. But anyways, if you want some more content from me right now, go ahead and check out these videos next to me. If you don't want to miss future content in the future, like I already said, make sure you subscribe. That is the best way to do that. But my name is Matt. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one.